Mother Teresa has a saying that I often go back to, which is that you help the person that's in front of you. Whether they are an emancipated student, they are a student who is differently documented, or they're a student who comes from an amazing, beautiful, fully vibrant family, but needs help with resources and navigation.
Right.
We meet each of those students exactly where they are.
From the campus of Our Lady's University, this is For Good, Stories from Notre Dame, a behind-the-scenes glimpse into life under the Golden Dome and the powerful stories that drive Notre Dame to become a force for good in the world. Hello and welcome to For Good, Stories from Notre Dame. Over the past decade, Notre Dame has established innovative programming to promote educational access and equity in response to the growing diversity of our student body. Today's guest has made this mission her life's work. Maria McKenna is the director of the Transformational Leaders Program, TLP, and the AnBryce Scholars Initiative, and also serves as a professor of the practice and Africana Studies and the Education, Schooling, and Society program at Notre Dame. Maria, thanks so much for joining us, and we're really excited to have this conversation today. So let's begin by telling us, what is the scope and the purpose of the Transformational Leaders Program?
Sure. So the Transformational Leaders Program it's going into its fourth year here. And we are really excited about the way that this has evolved, because the point of the program was really to think about how is it that we're going to reach all of our first generation, low income students who come from different backgrounds and are prepared differently for their experience at Notre Dame. Our goal is to make sure that any student in any one of those spaces has the services, access, opportunities, and navigational support that they need to have the most flourishing experience at Notre Dame as possible.
So what you're doing is trying to give low-income students the full Notre Dame experience. How are they prepared differently, for example?
Sure. So one of the things that we think about in our work in TLP is the way that students come to us with a myriad of assets. Mm-hmm. We think of everything we do here on our campus writ large as asset-based. Mm-hmm. Our students come from very different backgrounds. They come from really diverse families. They also have an enormous amount of potential in terms of their navigational capital, their linguistic capital, mm-hmm. the ways that they have walked through the world. Mm-hmm. But they might have gone to high schools that didn't have the same kind of rigorous AP courses mm-hmm. or international baccalaureate courses that some of our other students have. Or they might have gone to a number of different schools because their families moved around, or had different opportunities to travel across the United States for work. Mm-hmm. And so what we're really trying to do is think about how is it that we can make sure that our students come into Notre Dame and through Notre Dame with as many supports as possible, but also as many opportunities to shine their amazing gifts on the rest of us and right. with and through the rest of us.
So I know one way we measure low-income students is through the federal Pell Grant.
Sure.
And they'll talk about students who receive a Pell loan are typically coming from household incomes of less than $60,000 and with variables on the size of the family, et cetera. How big is this population at Notre Dame, and is it growing?
It is definitely growing. Over the past decade, we have moved the needle pretty substantially on our campus. We are now over 20% of our students who come into any entering class are either first generation students or students that would qualify as low income backgrounds. We also think about students who are from independent backgrounds, students who are part of the foster care system, and students who are part of the DreamND community, who might have documentation status that's different than some of our other students. They all fold into this TLP community that we have here.
Got it. Now, TLP is not the only program serving, students with heightened need per se. It's part of a broader kind of mission scholars program. Can you give us some context?
Sure. So Notre Dame has long been known for its support of students from different backgrounds, from our support of Irish immigrants early on in the 20th century through when we welcomed back the veterans of World War II through the GI Bill.
Yeah.
And we've really thought about the way Notre Dame is changing and the face of Notre Dame changing in important and significant ways around both diversity, around racial and ethnic diversity, but also around economic diversity. One of the very first academic programs that we created at Notre Dame was in 1986 when we created the Balfour Hesburgh Scholars Program. We have since added different scholars programs along the way over the years, including the AnBryce Scholars Initiative, the Posse Foundation we've worked with over the years. We have a number of different scholars programs that meet the needs of particular groups of students that fall broadly construed into this category. We also have really upped our game with the Office of Student Enrichment and the ways that we've thought about the marriage of financial aid and material needs, and now the academic needs of students. We are situated, all of the Mission Scholars programs, in the Office of the Provost. We report to the Provost and through the Provost. And what that means is that our task is really to accompany our students on their academic journey, to work with the Office of Undergraduate Education and make sure that we've got discernment sorted out for these students, that we are helping them find the Center for Undergraduate Scholarly Engagement, and that they're working with the Center for University Advising, our tutoring services, all of the different pieces across campus that we have. So part of a much larger constellation. And really excited and proud to be a part of a group of scholars programs that all have unique attributes and unique ways that they reach the students. TLP is our largest scholars program.
It is, and that's the area where we want to really focus kind of our growth and being able to reach the needs of the different students. So you mentioned foster care. How many students do we have roughly at the university right now, or whatever stats you have, that are emancipated by their states when they come here?
There are not a huge number of these students. So fewer than 50 across all 4 classes at any given time is my best estimate that I could give you right here. But one of the things that I think is important is that the Transformational Leaders Program, like all of our Mission Scholars programs, is really focused on meeting each student where they're at. So one student at a time. Mother Teresa has a saying that I often go back to, which is that you help the person that's in front of you. And so whether they are an emancipated student, they are a student who is differently documented, or they're a student who comes from an amazing, beautiful, fully vibrant family, but needs help with resources and navigation, we meet each of those students exactly where they are.
So you would have a lot of students who have overcome significant adversity in their lives, right? That they have not just, battled kind of economic hardship in many cases, but other challenges along the way. Can you give us a glimpse of the diversity, maybe through some anecdotes without revealing names?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm thinking about a young woman that I work with pretty regularly, even this summer, who came to us, interviewed for one scholars program, and we decided that TLP was a better fit for her. From the moment that I interviewed this young woman, we have connected, we've stayed connected, we've helped her navigate finding a job here that wasn't just transactional, but transformational. We've helped her think through, what does it mean to study abroad or not study abroad? How is she going to use her summers while she's here? She's here this summer after a really challenging experience not being able to study abroad this spring, where she had to make sure that she got enough credit to keep her on track this summer. She is doing that. She is working, I actually think, in your office. And she's also serving as a program assistant for our summer program for incoming first-year students that we run. So she is, in my mind, a great example of someone who is both asking us to help her navigate this place, but giving far more than she's getting from us.
And it adds we both have children who are students here, and I think it really enriches their experiences. To be in class, to have that perspective of somebody who has In the case that the example that you just provided, I know that she suddenly lost a parent this last semester, which affected the study abroad plans, among others, and visa issues, et cetera. And just kind of talking with her in with her internship, she's been through a lot of trauma, but she's working through it, and she is going to be stronger and more resilient, and I think bring hope to a lot of people who have faced similar experiences.
I think she already does that. She walks into your office, and she is just energy personified.
Right.
And she brings people along with her. And that's really, when we think about this, the goal, whether it's bringing people alongside you within transformational leaders, or it's being able to have enough space and time and energy because other things have been taken care of, that you can work in your dorm and you can be part of your dorm community, or join the choir or a band. The band. I think about my own son's freshman year roommates, and two of those students were part of TLP. Another was an international student.
Right.
And they have made our lives better as a family.
Right.
One of them joins us for Thanksgiving every year, and last year made pozole. I can guarantee you it's the first time my family ever had pozole on a Thanksgiving dinner. And those relationships and the relationality of what we are doing is central.
Yeah.
We think of our work as really being purveyors of radical hospitality.
That's beautiful. Now, we're in the second floor of the main building, the Golden Dome, and this is the lounge area for the Transformational Leaders Program. And so tell us what happens in this space. Do students just come and hang out here in addition to accessing services?
Yes and yes. So I'm actually really proud of the space. I love that we're doing this here. I love Maria Montessori. This will get to your question, I promise.
Yeah, that's good.
And Maria Montessori is a philosopher who often talks about preparing the environment and preparing the adult. And when I think about the work that we do, part of preparing the environment is thinking about our whole campus, and how do we make our campus as hospitable and welcoming as possible to every student, every family who walks across the threshold. And how do we make sure that even our office space embodies that notion of a prepared environment? So when we created this space, I had sort of three things that really guided the preparation. The first was that we weren't going to spend a single penny on any furniture or any furnishings, because we were going to use our resources as closely to the student as possible. And so we worked with surplus, we worked with folks on campus to find everything in here from other places on campus. And we made it homey, we made it comfortable, we made it beautiful. And it also didn't take away from the $2,000 or the $10,000 or the however much it would have cost for me to provide somebody a study abroad grant or for me to help somebody with a summer school course.
Right.
So that was the first principle. The second was to think about, how do we make this feel as homey as possible? How do we make sure that the walls, every bit of this space reflects a welcoming environment? So all of the art here is religious art that's been curated or created by Brother Mickey McGrath, who actually came and did a mural with us. But we really worked to make sure that every culture was represented that we have within TLP, and that everyone felt welcome. Literally by the environment, by walking into this space. So students study here. We have our leadership seminar here. We have senior fellows that we work with student affairs to embed here and have as both assistants in our own right for our staff, but also to be guides and leaders of our program for our students. But we also have around the sort of main lounge, we have our offices in Transformational Leaders. We have the Office of Institutional Transformation, and we actually have the University Honor Code Officer situated here in our space. And I love the intermingling of professional offices and offices with TLP. I love that we're right next to the Office of Undergraduate Education, and that they are squarely in this main building.
Right. So, there's one thing is to provide a sense of welcome, as you mentioned, But it's a whole nother thing to provide a sense of belonging, right? So one thing is that we welcome strangers into our home and we want to be hospitable and all that stuff. But in this case, we want it to be everyone's home. Notre Dame is accessible and that deeper sense of belonging. This takes time in changing a culture. How are we doing and how much work do we still have ahead of us as we're expanding the population of low-income students at Notre Dame? Why is this so important to provide a sense of belonging?
So this goes back to that second piece of Montessori, which is the prepared adult. And by thinking about how are we doing, and you think about the prepared adult, we don't often think of our students as adults.
Yeah.
But if we think of our student population, part of our job is to help everyone here, both the students in TLP, but also our wider student population, understand the beautiful tapestry of God's creation, of all of the different people and ways that people come to education that we've brought together here at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
This is a pretty phenomenal place.
Yeah.
But it is only a place with the people. Spaces become places because of people.
Right.
And so when we think about the work that we're doing here and the relationality and belonging, it starts with making sure that we've got our students from all different places, knowing that they're welcome here. Our TLP students can bring anybody they want in this lounge. There's no gate that says, excuse me, are you part of a scholars program? Anybody's welcome here.
Yeah.
If somebody needs coffee or needs to come in and get some chips or some nuts, great. We're happy to have them. In the same way, we think about that belonging emanating from our faculty and our staff across campus.
Yeah.
Everyone from the dining hall staff who are so incredibly welcoming and thoughtful. I think of a young man, Eric. I was invited to talk to the food services staff about TLP.
Yeah.
And one of the young men who works in dining services came up to me afterwards and said, my name is Eric and I want to be a mentor. And we're connected to those folks.
Right.
I think about the ways that we've connected with career services and Notre Dame Global and made an opportunity for our students to one by one have relationships with these spaces. And then at the crux of this work is the staff here in TLP. And this staff mirrors the staff of our other mission scholars programs. We have a group of folks called education and outreach specialists. They act as quasi mentors, navigators, cheerleaders, caseworkers along the way for each of our students. And they each have a group of students in their cohort. So while TLP is 800 strong for next year and growing.
Yes.
We make that smaller by having each student be a part of a cohort of about 100 students so that they get to know their education and outreach specialist, and that education and outreach specialist gets to know them in a way that those connections start to flourish naturally.
Do the upper class students help to mentor the younger students?
Absolutely. So we know, research tells us that the best programs for helping first-generation students or students from low-income backgrounds succeed in colleges are programs that have peer mentoring programs. So we have peer networks here, formal and informal within TLP. We're also building a peer learning organization and group through our Learning Resources Center and the Center for University Advising. And that partnership has been pretty organic and pretty phenomenal over the past few years as we've watched what our students need.
Right.
So we've got older students talking to younger students about, this was the study abroad thing I did, or here's a section of math that's been really powerful for me because the instructor's so great.
Right.
We have 8 students here who are upper class students mentoring our 60 incoming first years who are here right now working on credit bearing opportunities in our summer academy. So a very symbiotic set of relationships.
So this is a trend that is really kind of affecting all of higher education, and it's not without controversy, right? So you have on the one hand, you have a lot of criticism. Notre Dame would fall into that roughly 40% of the entire college student population in the United States would qualify for Pell Grants. They would be low socioeconomic, backgrounds. And the top universities, including Notre Dame, are at half that rate or less. And so they're saying that, first of all, you're not inclusive enough. Your student body is not reflecting this country, let alone the globe. But on the other hand, there's a lot of criticism that's saying that what we're doing, or many schools are doing, has a barbell effect, that we just have the very wealthy and the very poor, and we're squeezing out the middle class, the middle income students. How would you respond to where Notre Dame falls in that process and what you're trying to do here through the Transformational Leaders Program?
I'm sitting here thinking, just throw me a real easy softball question. And then I get this giant sort of elephant in the room question. Exactly. On lots of levels. So I study and think about, as an academic, marginalization in American schools and youth empowerment.
Right.
And one of the things that's become very clear to me in the academic work I do, but also the experiences I've had over the last decade and a half of being at Notre Dame, is every institution can't be everything to everyone.
Right.
And we really have to think both at Notre Dame, but also institutionally across the United States, about what our part of the solution is.
Yeah.
Who are we going to be? But who are we going to be in relationship to all of these other institutions?
Right.
And so, can we change the admitted class to Notre Dame to mirror that 40%? We could. Yeah. We have an enormous, beautiful applicant pool that we are choosing from. Should we? I don't know. I don't know that that's my call to make. But what I do know is that we have committed to the students that we have accepted. And by making a commitment for excellence, not just in admitting a particularly diverse class, but making sure that their experience is as beautiful as it can be,
right,
we are also providing an example for the rest of the country on how to do this really well.
Good. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So one way that you measure success, I would think, is what are the graduation rates of these students? And how are we doing with placing them into internships and jobs? Those are concrete, kind of tangible signs. Probably easier to measure than, are they having a qualitatively good experience? How are we doing? Let's begin with graduation rates and anything you can say in terms of early indicators of success that you've seen.
Yeah, so one of the things that we are really lucky to be able to say at Notre Dame is we have one of the highest, if not the highest, graduation rates for Pell eligible students in the country.
And that is huge. I mean, that means that Notre Dame, and I'm going to interrupt here just for a second.
Go for it.
Having lived in shanty towns in Latin America for about 5 years of my life and run a homeless center for about 8 years, I know that social service organizations and with great intentions that work with the poor see exceedingly high levels of recidivism. People move out of poverty, fall back, out. But at Notre Dame, when we get a student from this type of difficult, impoverished background, we're able to permanently break cycles. Over 9 out of 10 are breaking permanently cycles of poverty, dependency, hardship, in 4 years. That may be unparalleled, unprecedented in terms of what organizations are able to do.
When you think about the work that we're doing, we often talk about the social mobility and the effect on family systems.
Yeah.
And so our students who come to us from backgrounds that are difficult, from all kinds of different difficult,
right,
they often have that sort of weight of the world resting on their shoulders. They are the one that's going to get the job with the income that's going to pull people out of a neighborhood or a home that they don't particularly want to be in. They are the ones that are going to teach their younger siblings or their cousins or their close-knit friend group how to go to college. They are the ones that are going to navigate all of these other pieces. But the truth is they've already been doing those things in lots of ways, but that don't necessarily pay off economically or in terms of social mobility. And what we are doing, and I think doing well, is helping students to both own that that is part of their responsibility. I don't want to ever tell someone that the most important thing isn't getting a job that's a good paying job. I recognize that I didn't come from the same kind of background that you did, and I need to honor that that's a goal.
That's right.
But I also need to make sure that we're honoring the mental health of that student, that we're honoring that they are 18 and 19 and 20-year-old young people who need the opportunity to go explore and go to London for a summer or go to Zimbabwe and look at the world from a different place. And so this may seem like a little bit of a tangent to your question, but I think that what Notre Dame is uniquely situated to do is not simply sort of think about that social mobility or think about statistics in raw numbers about who are we graduating and how are we graduating. We're doing just fine in those metrics. We're doing better than fine. What I really want to think about is how are we graduating healthy, whole human beings who had an amazingly beautiful experience here that they can then take and say, I am going to help other people have that same kind of experience.
That's beautiful. That's perfect. What are we leading? Do you think that we're building a program here through Transformational Leaders Program that's not only going to help students who come to Notre Dame, but is going to pioneer kind of a new method of education, inclusivity for other schools?
I do. I think when we think about the work at Notre Dame, we look at Provost McGreevy's strategic framework and the work that Father John, the legacy that Father John left us with and that Father Bob will build on. We always are thinking about how do we think about being best in class, but also how do we think about doing good in the world? And we think about the poverty initiative that we're working through in the strategic framework, or the way we're thinking about democracy. Our work fits squarely into those spaces with undergraduates. Because if we do this right and we do this well, we are an example not just of getting somebody through school, but creating informed citizens, creating informed scholars of the world, creating people who are going to go and do ethical, thoughtful, engaged work, regardless of where they land in terms of their employment. We are creating a program here and really a community and a constellation of programs here where our priority is student well-being and student experience, not in the material sense of you get to go to the football games or you get to join the band.
Although that's a part of it.
That is a foundational piece of this. But to wrap that also into we have designed a program where relationality is at the core. And our Catholic mission allows that in a way that I think is particularly unique. We are convening in October a group of about 30 Catholic universities and colleges from across the United States to talk about first-generation scholars, to talk about low-income scholars programs, because we have things to learn from those programs, but we also have things to offer about how do you do this and how do you do this on a budget? How do you do this and be good stewards of resources? How do you do this and meet every student exactly where they're at?
I know that I've heard, and you'll probably be embarrassed by this, that a lot of students around here call you Dr. Mom because you not only bring your educational prowess, but also your maternal instincts that you love these kids. And we live near each other on the same block, not far from campus, and I see the menagerie of students that come in and out of your house, and some live there for periods of time, and it's an eclectic mix of students. The student that you mentioned a little bit earlier, who works in our office, who's a TLP student, she had this to say about you. She said, Dr. McKenna has been a godsend to me. She has supported me through some of the toughest moments in my life and has encouraged me to keep moving forward and has never let me down. No matter what she was going through or how busy she was, she'd always make time for me and others. Dr. McKenna is loving intelligence, resourceful, compassionate, and overall an amazing person. I'm glad I met her, and I can't wait to show her the woman that I will become. So
now we're both crying.
Now we're both crying, exactly. Why? Where does your passion come? You did not grow up poor, but you've dedicated your life to serving students like this young woman and helping them to break cycles and find a deeper level of meaning and joy in their lives.
So the first thing I want to say back to that quote is that young woman doesn't need to do any more than she's already done to show me the woman that she is. I come to work every single day and I get to see kids busting their butts to make it work, to get through the chemistry course that they didn't think they could get through, to find what they need to find, to scrape together the funding to go on a spring break excursion with people. Our students are amazing, and our TLP students are amazing, but our student body is amazing in that we really do meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And so, to your question and to the Dr. Mom monkeyer, my more recent one from my son's friends is Mama McKenna. And those came out of my own children being able to be here and experience the love and the care of our faculty and staff across this space. And for me to start to share in their relationships and their friendships that they've created here. But I think that deep down, this work comes from an abiding sense of faith.
Yeah.
I grew up in a home where we never knew who was going to be at Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
You never knew who was going to be there when you got home at night. And you never knew where you were going, particularly if you got in the car with my mother. I know my mom recently passed away, and you would go and you would maybe end up at somebody's house and you would be sort of put on display like the Von Trapps to sing The Sound of Music, or you would end up in the babysitting room while she did RCIA preparation with my dad.
Yeah.
But she taught us how to be women of faith, and she taught us how to be women of conviction. Both my parents did.
Yeah.
And for me, that conviction came out naturally in working first with children and then working with young adults. And I studied economics and theater when I was here as an undergraduate.
Yeah.
I use both of those degrees every single day to understand the complicated nature of school policies, to understand how do we end up with inequitable systems that mean that we have the haves and the have-nots and the ends of the barbells in our American education system and in our higher education system.
Right.
I think about that work in communications and theater and what it means to be able to articulate a vision. Father Hesburgh in his book talks about to be a leader, you have to have a vision. It has to be a vision that you articulate clearly and forcefully at all times.
Right.
You cannot blow an uncertain trumpet.
We both know that, yeah.
When I was coming to Notre Dame, I lived in Italy at the time with my family. And one of the random books that we had in our house was God, Country, Notre Dame. And that was the first time I read that quote. And it was a moment that sticks with me forever. I put it in my college application to come here. And I think I have held true to making sure that there's been a vision, but it's not a vision I do by myself, right? It's a vision that if you communicate it widely and rightly, everybody gets it. This young woman is a leader in doing this work alongside me, like all of the students that I work with and that my team works with. Father Joe Kapora says...
who works with you in TLP.
Who works with me, who's the associate director of Transformational Leaders, says that the transformational leaders should not have worked as quickly or as well as it did. And the only reason that that is true is because the students allowed it. And I think that is where, when you think about our work and the work that we still have to do to grow and support these students, that is where we really come to understand that it is not just that we've designed something or that we've created resources or opportunities, but that we've created a community for our students to come into and to love and to grow out and emanate from. We don't want to keep them here. We want them to go out.
So what was the term that you used? Radical
accompaniment.
Radical accompaniment. It reminds me of Blessed Father Moreau's vision that we never want to educate the minds of our students at the expense of their hearts. And what you're doing here is that radical accompaniment at a deeper level. So you're 4 years old as a TLP program. You haven't even come close to adolescence yet. You're still growing by leaps and bounds, and the numbers of students that fit this lower socioeconomic background are going to continue to grow, as will their needs. What is your vision moving forward, and what do you need? How can people watching this program, how can they be of help?
So I think that the vision is that any student coming from one of the backgrounds that we serve who is accepted at Notre Dame is invited into a scholarly program that allows them to navigate their way through Notre Dame as successfully as possible. We work in conjunction with the academic advising team. We work with the faculty and staff in the colleges. But my goal is that anyone from those backgrounds who wants to come into this program and wants to be part of that scholarly endeavor has access to that. Right now, we're reaching about 50% of the total number of students that we might be able to reach. So we have room to grow.
Right.
We don't have room to grow in here. We're going to need to figure that part out.
Yeah.
But we have room to grow in terms of the number of students we serve and also the opportunities that we can provide students. So we want to help them navigate and find all of the resources that the university already has, but we also want to help supplement and scaffold those opportunities. So we need to grow and build our Summer Academy at Notre Dame program, which is a pre-matriculation program for our incoming first years to help them hit the ground running, to get a few credits under their belt before they get here, so that then they become the leaders of their freshman class, which is a lovely model. It's a win-win. It's a win for them, but it's a win for the incoming students. We need to grow our opportunities for internships that are paid and that have housing associated with them.
Okay.
One of the most challenging things we're encountering is when our students get an internship in LA or New York or Atlanta, they are getting paid and sometimes paid well, but all their money gets eaten by housing.
Right.
How do we figure that part out?
Right.
We need to help students figure out their summer experiences and summer opportunities so that playing field is level. And we need to continue to grow our cadre and cohort of education and outreach specialists so that we can keep those ratios in such a way that everyone feels known and seen really intimately.
Yeah. We're not, a Catholic university is not a foundry or a factory. No. It's a place where everybody's to be known, loved, and served. So you're doing a terrific job. We go back a long ways. I'm so proud and so grateful that you're leading this program. And I know that you are deeply touching the lives of individual students, you and your whole team, and the numbers are only going to grow moving forward. And we're going to need to support you financially, support you with networks that will help with internships and jobs and mentoring, and anybody that would like to step up and help, reach out to us, and we'll guide you appropriately. So we always close these programs, and I can't think of a more opportune time with a prayer to Our Lady, to whom this university is dedicated. And we invite you to join with us wherever you might be, and we'll close with a Hail Mary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death.
Amen. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
Take care, all of you. God bless, and go Irish.